I know what you're thinking. You're thinking after making all these tier list and build order videos that one day your channel's gonna finally hit 1,000 subscribers and be monetized, and you'll be able to pay the bills, afford that brand new car, you'll be able to buy that mansion, and maybe just one day if you work hard enough, you'll also be able to afford the paladin upgrade. Okay, so maybe I'm not talking about you. Maybe I'm just talking about some hypothetical person that barely exists, right? The point though that I want to get at here is the paladin upgrade costs a lot of resources, and it costs so much that a lot of times folks recommend that in a 1v1 you don't even research it, that it's not worth it. Scores of videos have been done on this, but what has left us with the question then, when we think about who has the best cavalry in the game, particularly the best heavy cavalry, for a 1v1 scenario, we don't want to think about paladins. We should be thinking about who has the best cavalier. And that's the subject of this tier list. And if you frame the question in this way, I'm going to tell you up front, we get some really interesting answers. So join me in this video as we take a look at this topic, and that way, when you get out there and hit the ladder, you won't feel pressured to spend your finances and adopt a terrible fiscal policy getting that paladin upgrade. You'll be just fine with cavaliers. They'll get you there. Let's get after it. Alright, what is going on, everybody? Very excited for this tier list, looking at the best cavalier civilizations. I really tried to do this list initially as a top 10. It didn't work because I was throwing in civilizations, throwing them out. It was driving me crazy, so I decided that this would actually be better suited for a tier list, and I am the tier list guy, so it just makes sense. Up front, what I want to say about the best cavalier civilizations is that we want to think about this on a variety of metrics and also at a particular time in the game. Cavalier is not available until the Imperial Age for most civs in the game, and so for the most part, we're going to be thinking about that kind of early to mid-Imperial Age time frame. Secondly, civilizations that do get the paladin upgrade, we're just going to assume that you've deemed it not worth it. So we're not going to be factoring in paladins here, right? So that is out. The third thing that we want to consider is not just the head-to-head heavy cavalry kind of matchup, but we want to consider the full context of the cavalier, right? You know, heavy cavalry is a unit that operates often on power spikes because heavy cavalry is easily countered by halberdiers. And cavaliers as well, since they don't get that 7 pierce armor, can even be countered okay by a big batch of arbalists. You get countered pretty hard by camels. And so when you're playing, I would say knights in general, but when you're playing heavy cavalry in Imperial Age, usually you're trying to do a lot of damage with that cavalier attack. And so what we're talking about when we're looking at this tier list and what makes the best cavalier civilization, we're going to be thinking about a very short window of time for the most part. Right now, if there's a reason to deviate and violate that, we'll add that in there, because at the end of the day, we want to try and have as accurate of a list, and sometimes you got to know when to deviate from the meta. But for the most part, right, this is a pretty compressed time period. We want to consider a variety of factors: how much damage you're doing, your durability, strength, etc., the ability to actually produce these guys quickly, etc. We're going to factor in all of that. So before I jump in, just say, hey, if you like the video, definitely throw the like out there. And if you enjoy my content and you want to see more, definitely subscribe, right? We're getting some good content on a regular basis these days, getting a video out during the week. It's much more of, I would say, closer to like a podcast or analytical kind of style, and then on the weekends trying to do these tier lists. So let's go ahead, right? We're going to jump into that, and as you can see, this is a unique tier list we have here because we have an NA column that we can go ahead and immediately put Aztecs and Bengalis. Nowadays, there are quite a few civilizations in the game that don't get access to the Cavalier. These are 2 of them, so we don't have to factor them into our rankings. Now, getting to the Berbers, this is a pretty strong Cavalier civ. I'm going to put it right up here in the A tier. The Berbers don't really have a proper eco bonus, but their Cavaliers are 20% cheaper in the Imperial Age, and their Knights are 15% cheaper in the Castle Age. Now, I know we said we're not going to think that much about the pre-Imperial Age here, but that actually does affect the Imperial Age, because what happens is you either have a good bit of resources saved up because you're making about the same amount of units, or you have a lot more units available to upgrade into Cavalier, which means that once that comes in, if you have more units, that power spike is exceptionally strong for this civ, right? The only thing to me that keeps them out of the S tier is that they're generic, fully upgraded Cavalier, and so if you're matching 1-for-1 with your opponent, right, then, and they have a better Cavalier civ, or they have a military advantage, you might find that it's harder to kind of crawl out of that. So there is one small area, usually with Berbers, you can win it with numbers, but if you are a little bit on the back foot, Cavalier might not be able to save you in a way that it can for some of the other civs on this list, and we'll talk about those. Moving on to the Bohemians. Whoo, this is really bad, really, really bad. No bloodlines, no less armor. I don't think you get husbandry either. Terrible Cavaliers, easy F tier. Britons, I think, are really interesting. This may surprise you. I think I gotta put them in the C tier, actually. Look, you get fully upgraded Cavaliers with the exception of bloodlines. This means that you have a decent cavalry unit, right? Decent heavy cavalry unit in the late game, right? This is not bad at all. I don't think you should be terribly fearful of going into Cavaliers with Britons, except for the fact that you just need to keep it a bit more situational. I think you'll find these C tier civs are just a bit more situational in the matchups that you want to think about. So with Britons, if you're just up against somebody that has an incredible amount, like mass skirmishers, something like that, then with Britons, if you want to make that switch, right, for some reason you think heavy cavalry is the way to go for it, right? You can do it with Britons. Next up, we have the Bulgarians, and this is one of these S tier civs, right? This is a fantastic Cavalier civ. There's so many things that this civ has going for it, but here's some of the main ones. Your blacksmith upgrades are cheaper on the food, which is a fantastic bonus, and your blacksmiths work faster. What this means is that you get your Cavaliers upgraded much more easily, and you get them faster as well. So you're gonna have all your upgrades. That is really helping you a lot because, again, that big power spike that you want to attack fast in, with Bulgarians, you're gonna be able to do that. But the kicker for the Bulgarians is that you have the stirrups upgrade from the castle. It's really affordable, and it increases the attack rate of all of your cavalry, so including your Cavaliers, by about 33%. I've done some testing on this, looking at some of the head-to-head Cavalier matchups, and basically, Bulgarians are top of the line. Bulgarians essentially have about the strongest heavy cavalry in the game from about late Castle Age to, I would say, early to mid-Imperial Age, which is really the time period that we're looking at here. So with Bulgarians, you just have probably the strongest power spike in that early to mid-imp with your Cavalier. For that reason, easy S tier. Now, Burgundians. Burgundians are actually kind of a weird one to talk about, I think. I'm going to put them in the B tier. So the thing about Burgundians that we have to think a little bit differently about is that they actually get access to the Cavalier in the Castle Age. And in the Castle Age, this is a very strong upgrade. Not only that, but their stable upgrades are all 50% cheaper, so you can actually afford this pretty well. So even though you're missing bloodlines, basically Cavalier is kind of like bloodlines for the Civ. However, you gotta wait till Castle Age to research it, and it still takes a long time to research. Burgundians are one of the few civilizations that can actually cheaply go for the paladin upgrade, but again, we're not factoring that in here. And because we're not factoring that in, we have to rank them a bit lower in the tier list, because even though they probably have, let's just say like a high A tier, maybe even S tier Castle Age, because their Cavalier is, giving them some pretty good damage out of the field, basically +2 damage over other knights. If you're not researching the paladin upgrade, you have Cavaliers with bloodlines, without bloodlines, which is kind of the same as the Britons. You're saving some resources on husbandry, but I think we have to factor in that composite here. We have to think about the Burgundian Castle Age a bit in our analysis. Again, it's kind of a similar situation where if you find yourself a bit more on the back foot, it could be a little bit harder to pull out of a hole with Burgundian Cavalier because you are missing bloodlines, and otherwise they're pretty generic. You do have a really strong eco behind it, so it's quite good, but it's just not a civilization where Cavaliers are really that heavy power unit that you can get to quickly, unlike a civilization like, for instance, Bulgarians. Next up is the Burmese, and Burmese I think I also got to put in the B tier. Fully upgraded Cavaliers are nice, but you also get mana per cavalry, which gives you +4 attack against archers. This is a tech I haven't seen used that much, so my putting them in B tier may reflect that bias just a little bit. You have to research it in Imperial Age, so it could slow down your production a bit. You got to get it from the castle. It's helpful because Cavaliers only, in most cases at least, only get that 6 pierce armor as a maximum. And so being able to take out archers is really good. But other than that, they're pretty generic, and you don't really have the kind of eco to get to them fast. So I think that this is just a nice solid B tier civilization. Alright, next up we have the Byzantines. Byzantines I think have to go in the D tier. You are missing bloodlines and you're missing blast furnace. So that's a pretty big downgrade. I think that makes them categorically distinct from a civilization like the Britons that does get blast furnace. So we're gonna have to put them in the D tier. But right, you still get that +4 armor, and that's pretty impactful. So that's enough to rank them a little bit higher than a civilization like Bohemians where you're missing a lot. Celts for me is a similar situation. I will say I like Byzantine Cavaliers more because you get the armor. Celt Cavaliers get all your attack upgrades, but you are missing the last armor and bloodlines. I think that this is much worse than Byzantines. I'll say it this way. I think Celt Cavalier are closer to F tier than you might think because they're missing that armor. Not a very strong rating unit, but you at least have husbandry, and you have a pretty solid eco. I don't know. I think this one is really, really tough. Because we're not getting the paladin upgrade with them, you know what? I hate to do it, but I think that missing the last 4 in armor and bloodlines, it puts you behind so much, and I think based on that, I think we actually have to move Celt Cavalier to the F tier. Now Chinese is pretty strong. Definitely got to put them in the B tier, and this is tough. So the thing about Chinese is that you have a really nice eco, and the Cavalier upgrade is not as expensive. I mean, none of your upgrades are as expensive with the Chinese, and that makes it a lot easier to get to the technologies that you need to get to with this civ. If I had to say, I'd put it above Burmese, and comparing it to Burgundians, I think I like Burgundian eco a bit better, though it is pretty close. And being able to get the Cavaliers in Castle Age, I think to me gives Burgundians that edge, but it's very close because with the Chinese you're going to have fully upgraded Cavaliers in the Imperial Age, and that can be quite strong. Cumans, oh man, this is another good one. For me, Cumans, I think I could put them top of B tier, and we're going to kind of rank these actually right now, so we can go ahead and put Celt Cavaliers ahead of Bohemians. I kind of want to rank these from here on out. I think Cumans, right, you're getting fully upgraded, but you're getting fully upgraded. Oh, you're also getting the cheaper stables. Ah, man, I think we might have to put the bottom at A tier, actually. The faster Cavaliers get on station quickly, and that actually means a lot. One of the things I think that is often underrated in this game, in part because it's so difficult to quantify, is just how much speed has an impact, and speed is very important in this game. I think that with Cumans, though, what really to me puts them in the A tier is you have stables that are so cheap that when you're preparing for that big Cavalier push, being able to have, like 7 or 8 stables on station and be able to produce from them, even if you're not producing continuously. Knights are not the kind of unit, or Cavaliers, this is not a unit that you're just producing continuously throughout the game because they're so expensive. You oftentimes gear them up kind of in pushes, maybe a sustained Castle Age push, you can see Knight production being consistent, but eventually, right, to get up to the next age, if you're playing knights, or even for Cavalier because they're so expensive, right? I mean, everybody knows that point in the game when you run out of gold and you have to switch to light cavalry. With humans, though, what you're able to do is get a lot of stables up, get that massive resources that you have, boom, put it out in the field, and I think you can overwhelm players with this. So I think humans, I gotta put them at A tier, but I like the Berber bonus a bit better because I think even with the stables, it's can be hard to afford that for a decent amount of time, whereas I think Berbers just do a better job with it. Okay, Dravidians, they don't have them, no Nightline. Ethiopians, I think Ethiopian Cavaliers are the same as Celts. In terms of the eco bonus, I don't know, it's a wash. We're talking about F tier Cavaliers here. We don't really got to think about it that hard. Next up is the Franks. This is a tough one, but I can tell you that it's not S tier. I think I'd still put them in the A tier. Getting a little bit of extra HP is nice. The extra line of sight, I think, is better for the Knights than the Cavaliers, but it's still not bad. But what keeps Franks in the A tier is the chivalry tech, though it's so much harder to really make use of this tech now, and it's probably not helping you research Cavalier. It's probably something that can help you research Paladin, but not Cavalier. It can help your Cavalier spam, although I say even with that, I think Chivalry nowadays is much better because it's allowing your stables to work 40% faster. I think it's much better for spamming light cavalry in the late game because it's pretty expensive too. So I think it's a lot less impactful for their Cavalier spam, but if you have the resources for it and you just have a big economy, you can make it work and get that production going. So for that, I think we got to put them at bottom of A tier, but I'll be honest, I like humans better with the faster speed and the cheaper stables, and I like Berbers better with the cheaper Cavaliers in general. Goths, easy C tier for me. You get bloodlines, but no last armor. Again, it's kind of like Britons, except they get no bloodlines, but get the last armor. The way when I've tested it, that kind of works out is basically, if you have that +4 armor, no bloodlines, you can take like one extra arrow usually. And the melee fighters, right, you have that bloodlines, you're taking about one more melee shot. And this is thinking about the Imperial Age, right? So obviously, you know, in the Castle Age, Goth Knights would be better, but we're talking about Cavaliers, so easy C tier for me. Gurjaras, don't got them. Hindustanis, don't got them. Huns. Huns are fully upgraded, but your stables work 20% faster, and that means that Cavalier is going to come in a bit faster. You have a nice economy, and I like this bonus a lot. In fact, I think I gotta put them above humans. I don't think it's quite as good as the Berber bonus, though it is pretty good because you can get that mass. But I think what happens usually is you find that with Huns, you're kind of burning through resources because the stables work a bit faster. So it's good, but I still like the Berbers better in the A tier. Incas, don't get them. Italians are a nice solid B tier. Fully upgraded Cavaliers, no complaints. I think that is demonstrably different from C tier, which tend to lack the +2 armor or bloodlines, one of those two. So yeah, Italians, fully upgraded. Let's roll. Japanese, missing the last armor. Don't look at trying to sneak in, trying to get that little men at arms rush in there into the B tier. Sorry, Japanese Cavaliers unfortunately have to stay in the C tier. Khmer. This is really interesting. I think Khmer are good. I mean, the farms just really help you spam Cavaliers, but they are just fully upgraded. I think they gotta be in B tier. I still think the uniqueness of the Burgundian Cavalier in Castle Age, which we have to factor in, I still think that for me, it gives Burgundians such an advantage at that point in the game. I think we gotta keep the Burgundians ahead of them, but it's very close. Koreans, worse than even Bohemians, because you're also missing Blast Furnace. Ooh, terrible. Lithuanians. This is a really hard one to judge, and this may surprise you, but for me, I think Lithuanian Cavaliers are at the top of B tier. You have to think about this a little bit in terms of how you assess the probability that you're going to be able to really make the most out of the relic bonus. You can get up to +4 attack, but you're missing Blast Furnace, so in effect, it's like being able to get +2 more attack than a civilization that's fully upgraded. However, the likelihood that you're going to get 4 relics is, given that opponents know that you have to go for it and that you're going to be trying to get relics, I think is unlikely. And I think what usually happens is you get 2 or 3, which means you're getting generic Cavalier, or maybe +1 damage for a civ with really no eco bonuses in the mid game to support it. For me, that's top of B tier stuff, because hey, if you can get that +4 damage, and you have Cavaliers that are doing like 12 +6, that's very strong. But I just don't think you're just not guaranteed to get there, and usually you're probably looking at +1, or really just making up for the fact that you miss out on Blast Furnace. So I think for me that's top of B tier. Looking at the Magyars, this is also really interesting. I think I like Magyar Cavalier better than Burgundians. Even thinking about the funky Castle Age, getting the Blastsmith upgrades for free means that Magyars have really nice power spikes. Some of the best power spikes in the game with their heavy cavalry. For Cavaliers, right, this means that you're gonna have all your attack upgrades. It's not uncommon for civs to only have say the first attack upgrade even when they hit imp, because you want to try and afford +4 armor and Cavalier, and that's pretty expensive. You do tend to see the last couple attack upgrades delayed. With Magyars, don't worry about it. You have +4 attack as soon as you get up. And again, thinking about the power spike nature of the Cavalier upgrade, I think that's really helpful. And not to mention the resources you save on that throughout the game to be able to, to build that up later. So I don't think it's quite on the level of Lithuanian Cavaliers, just because at the end of the day, they are generic. And with Lithuanians, if you do get those 4 relics, you've usually got them secured by Imperial Age in a lot of cases. So, it's not a situation where you're going to be, oh, I got to get Blast Furnace. Where you would be thinking about that and you're like, oh, I don't have it. Like, you're kind of, if you've got the relics, you've already kind of got it in place. So, the fact that you miss Blast Furnace with Lithuanians, but you can get that +2 attack, I think you got to give Lithuanians a little bit of a bonus there. But actually, it's really close. Malay, I don't even think Malay get the second armor upgrade for the Cavs, so yeah, that's pretty bad. Malians, okay. Malians for me gotta go in the S tier. Look, this civ has some things going for it. Cheaper buildings means you can get stables cheaper. That's nice. The fact that your gold lasts longer, it kind of hurts your aggression, so it's not as good for like feudal play and maybe like all-in knights the way it used to be, and in the Castle Age. But for the Imperial Age with Cavalier, having that 30% extra gold is really good for being able to continuously spam units when your opponent can't. That's awesome. Now, the thing though that takes Malians over the top is the Farimba upgrade. Yeah, you miss Blast Furnace, but being able to give your cavalry +5 attack is a huge advantage. And when we compare that with, say, the Lithuanians with the relic bonus, right? Because it's like you're getting a little bit, even like 12 +7 is what you're going to get. But the difference is that whereas opponents can deny you relics and put you in a situation where, your Cavalier may even be behind, no one can deny you the ability to press the Farimba button without, defeating you, right? And taking you off resources. So the Farimba button's going to be there for you if you have the res to click it. And so I think we have to think about that a bit differently. And once you get that, Malian Cavaliers are basically the only ones in the game that can keep up with Bulgarian Cavaliers. But you got to remember, Bulgarians are getting to that power spike much sooner because they can get their unique tech in the Castle Age, and their upgrades are cheaper, and their upgrades come in faster. So Malians, though, They have the resources, they have the DPS, and they have a nice bonus that makes their stables a bit cheaper. Not as much as the Cumans, but a little bit cheaper. For me, that spells an S tier civ. Mayans, no Cavalier. Mongols, missing the last armor, so adequate, but you want to be careful how deeply you take it. Persians, I think, are really interesting here. I like Persian Cavaliers. I like them more with Burmese because what you're getting out of them, they're fully upgraded, but then you get +2 attack against archers. And that's just a team bonus, so you're not paying for it, which to me, I like more than the Burmese upgrade that you gotta research, because not every game you're gonna be able to research it. With Persians, though, you got it. I also think I gotta put the Persians ahead of... I'm gonna put them ahead even of Khmer and Chinese. This is my rationale here, folks. So, Persians have a really nice boom in the mid game, and often because their TCs work faster, because Persians have that bonus, I think oftentimes by the time you get to Imperial Age, you're kind of done booming with Persians. You typically have your vills. You still might need to make some vills, but it's kind of more, in my experience at least, it winds up being a lot more about really making military. Again, this depends on how much of an extended castle age you play, but you're going to be pretty boomed out, and that means that you can focus on getting those upgrades, churning out the numbers. Whereas I feel like with Chinese and Khmer are just not quite as strong. Their Khmer is really close. I think it's kind of a push, but at the end of the day, I like having that +2 against archers because arbalists can be a problem for Cavaliers if they have a big enough mass, and the Persians help you deal with that. So, and I do also like the trash bow. I think it's one of the best support units for your Cavaliers, which is something to consider. I gotta say, we haven't really been considering support units that much, but it is worth thinking. It's something very unique that the Persians have, and it is worth thinking about a little bit. So maybe a little weight on it, but still ultimately I think B. Poles, I've agonized over the Poles, and to me, I think you gotta put them in the S tier. Your Cavalier are just so cheap. Your food economy is just too strong. Even though it's not the biggest power spike because you missed the last armor, it's like 60 food, 30 gold. That's insane value. And you have the food economy to support it, and you'll be able to mine gold from stone. Like a bunch of alchemists over here. I've seen this technology in intermediate and even pro level games turn games around for pole players. I can't argue with S tier. If you want to say it's A tier, I wouldn't take you to the mat over it. But in my mind, I've seen it single-handedly win too many games, and that is enough for the S tier. Portuguese. This may surprise you. I'm gonna put Portuguese Cavaliers in the A tier. Why? Two main reasons. Right. On top of the fact that they're fully upgraded, they cost minus 20% gold. That's the basically half of the Berber's Imperial Age bonus, but you're getting it in Castle Age too. And not only that, but all your military units are costing minus 20% gold. So with this civilization, you have a huge amount of gold. But here's the real kicker, right? That might be an argument for A tier there. But for me, it's the Feitoria. Feitoria's a promise of infinite resources. If you can get to Feitoria, and even in a 1v1, you can maybe not spam Cavalier like crazy, but you can mix them into your armies. And that is very valuable. And to me, that's enough of a bonus. Give them the bottom of A tier, right? No, a lot of people might not agree with that, but I think that Portuguese Cavalier severely underrated. I've definitely had games when I've used it and felt like it was really successful. Saracens don't get the Cavalier. They get fully upgraded knights, no Cavalier. Sicilians, ooh, doggy. I gotta put it in the S tier, and I think I gotta put it ahead of Poles. Maybe even ahead of Malians, so I think it's really close, so I'll just leave it there. Look, 2 things here. Actually, 3 things. Your mid-game economy with a civilization is sick, fast-working TCs, farms that feel like they never expire. The minus 33% bonus damage, it was stronger, it was 50%, but it's still pretty darn strong for this civ. So, halbs are not as much of a threat, heavy camels are not as much of a threat. Though, with this civ, I do want you to understand that in the Imperial Age, even when it was 50%, heavy camels and halbs were still pretty cost effective, right? They just weren't as cost effective. Now, well, it's just gotten worse. But what really makes Sicilian Cavaliers go is the halberd technology. You're getting +1 melee, +2 pierce armor. What does this mean? For the pierce armor, it means that you take arrows like a beast. It's basically like being a paladin, right? Because even though you don't have the HP, you have 1 more pierce armor than a paladin, you're going to take a ton of arrows. The other thing it does is that +1 melee armor, it means that you win versus fully upgraded Cavaliers. So we have the performance in melee, the performance in ranged, the performance against the units that do bonus damage, and also a sick mid-game economy. That sounds like an S tier civ to me. Let's rock. Next up we have these Slavs. Slavs are right around here. I don't know where. I mean, I like the Slav. I don't know who has better. I think Slavs have slightly better farming than Khmer, with a 10% better farmers. It's basically a push, though. I'm going to give the Slavs the advantage because they farm faster, and I think that that's a little bit better, but it's extremely close. Still B tier. Fully upgraded Cavaliers. No real bonuses, though. Spanish. We can put them ahead of Italians. I mean, the thing about Spanish Cavaliers is that your blacksmith upgrades cost no gold. That's really the only thing you're getting. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the thing with Italians, though, going back to them for a second, you have cheaper age ups, and that's going to be a really nice power spike for getting Cavaliers on the field earlier. I actually think I like that better than the no gold costing upgrades. I know that that's kind of odd, but at this point in the game, gold just isn't that scarce. And we're talking about economies that are fairly boomed up at this point. I like being able to hit Imperial Age a little bit earlier, get the tech in, and start rolling, rather than having really no eco bonus at all, and just, kind of slouching your way into Imperial Age. I kind of like. I think I actually still prefer Italians over Spanish. Tatars. Pretty close. I think Tatars have a better economy than Spanish. And for having the better economy, fully upgraded Cavaliers, I think I still have to give Tatars the bump. Just because, if you're probably on 3 TCs, so you've gotten some more food by now. And again, at this stage of the game, gold isn't terribly scarce. So, yeah, I don't know. I still think I like Tatars a little bit better. Teutons. Oh, Teutons. Teutons for me, it's either A or S tier. I've had a lot of fun with Teutons. Let's think about top of A tier. So here's the rationale. You have the eco with the cheaper farms, right? That's good. You're going to have +2 melee armor. That's good. It's basically being able to, if a civilization has blast furnace, it's kind of like saying, well, actually, no, you don't. And so if you're up against a civilization without blast furnace, then it's kind of like they have no blacksmith upgrades against you. That's really strong. The other thing is the conversion resistance. That's very strong, but I do think it's a bit more impactful in the castle age, because at this stage in the game, you have a ton of units out in the field. And so generally speaking, you're not going to be able to get to, you're not going to be able to really get to enough monks to do it. I mean, maybe some arena games, but the thing to really think about here, though, I mean, I think if you combine that all together, I still think there's an argument for Teutons in S tier. The question for me is missing husbandry. That really affects the ability of your Teuton Cavaliers to get on station. And that to me is the thing that holds them back. Is that they're just slow. And when you're playing with heavy cavalry, you usually want to be forcing your opponent to take fights. You don't want to be waiting around giving your opponent time to regroup. Teuton Cavalier are so close. But they don't beat Bulgarian and Malian Cavalier head to head. I did the test. They don't. They do beat pretty much every other Cavalier head to head. But at the end of the day, I think, though, that especially when you're up against ranged units, missing husbandry can cause Teuton Cavaliers to really struggle against ranged units because they're so slow. I think you put all that together, it's close, but it's still an A tier. Turk Cavalier fully upgraded. I like the extra gold mining. I'll put that above Italians, actually. I think you can crank out units pretty good with this. 3 stable, or not 3, but multiple stable. You probably already have 3 stables at this time. But multiple stable openings. You have the gold to afford it. I actually really like that with the Turks. I actually think the Turk stable needs a little bonus. If it were up to me, I would give Turk camels and Cavaliers, or the Knightline in general, and 1 extra Pierce armor in Imperial Age. They don't get that. They're fully upgraded. Now, Jimmy's just speculating, but that's just me, though. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. Do Turk Cavaliers need a buff? Vietnamese, I think they're bottom of B tier. You miss Blast Furnace, but I do think missing Blast Furnace is not nearly as impactful as missing the last armor. So because of that, I think they slide right into the bottom of B tier. And then Vikings, they're last, almost least, maybe not as bad as Korean or Malay, but they're pretty bad, right? Maybe we could put them up here, right with Bohemians. Yeah, they're pretty bad. No bloodlines, no last 2, armor, no husbandry. It's off. And that's the tier list, right? So as you can see, a lot of civs don't have Cavalier, which is kind of surprising. That we have 7 civs in the game now that don't have. A number of civilizations that have really pathetic Cavalier. Not that many civilizations even that have kind of just like situational Cavalier. A lot of civs in the middle. I think a lot of variation in here. And then not a ton of civs at the top. And the S tier is a superpower club. Pretty refined air, I gotta say. Pretty refined. And I think I'm pretty happy with this tier list overall. So let me know, right? Let me know in the comments section. What do you think about the tier list? Would you move any Cavaliers to a different location, right? Are you surprised that civilizations that we think of as having strong, heavy cavalry, right? Like the Franks, the Huns, right? Persians, Lithuanians, Magyars. None of these civilizations, they're not S tier, right? Because we're not talking about paladins. We're just talking about the Cavaliers, and Cavaliers are a lot closer to being generic than I think you'd like to think of. So it's a pretty refined club for our S tier civs, and that's the tier list. So I hope this has helped you sort of conceptualize and rank the Cavalier civs, so that way when you get out there and you're up against these civs, right, you're gonna have an idea kind of where they stand with Cavaliers and what you might expect from a heavy cavalry switch. With that being said, Jim James 59. Hey, I'll see you guys out there on the ladder. Peace.